As I look outside on this fall day, I start to think about deeper things, deeper ideas in my life. Fall always encourages me to spend some time thinking about a little bit bigger picture. I go a little bit deeper into my psyche, a little bit deeper into my thoughts, and I look at them objectively, not too emotionally, but with an eye, rather, that says, this is kind of interesting. So this morning I was reading a number of different articles. One of the articles I was reading about is how women who are more dominant in their relationships have less physical intimacy. And one of the reasons they came up with was that dominant women have more of a say in their environment. And so they feel they have more control over getting what they want. And maybe they want a little bit less physical intimacy, at least with the partner they're currently with. The other thing that I was reading was about women and marriages, and about women in long-term marriages, 20, 30, 40 years. Why they were able to stay so long in that relationship. I've been with my husband for 19 years or so. We started dating young and waited about 7 years to get engaged, and then got married a year later. So I understand a lot of what these women are talking about in this book. The general consensus of most of these women, and myself, is that the difference between long-term relationships and short-term relationships, at least for these women, is endurance. It's not that they're able to create the perfect love. It's not that they don't do things that go against the perfect love idea. It's not that they or their partners are the most amazing human beings in the world. It's that at any point in time, they are judging the relationship and saying, are the benefits I'm getting from this worth the drawbacks? And if they are, they stay. So it's almost a secret that women in the long-term relationships don't necessarily share with people. The secret is they're not always happy. The other one is just because they talk about divorce doesn't mean they're actually getting one. In fact, talking about it can release the stress so they don't actually have to. Life isn't always perfect, and the difference isn't so much that you create the perfect man, but more that you've decided that you're going to stick with a relationship for some really good reason. It could be because divorce is really expensive, or I like having two incomes. It could be that you might want your children to have a father that's close by, or you like the security of having a family. Either way, you have a very good reason for wanting to stay. Now, I have a friend that believes in perfect love. And granted, he has a difficult time committing to a relationship longer than 2 years because his expectations are of perfect love. And this perfect love means that his expectations will always be met. Now, I also have a lot of women in my life who are considering divorce and are looking at the relationship and believing, I need to be happy. And so they want to make this change because they believe they can't be happy in the relationship that they're in. These are both types of people that have in their mind a perfect type of love. A love where they get what they need, everything they need, from the person they're in relationship with, all the time. And then when they don't, they feel inspired or pushed to do things which they end up feeling guilty about, but perfectly justified in doing them. Behaviors which might go against what other people believe are right or wrong. And many times they go against what they themselves believe is right or wrong. I read a quote recently from a woman who says she doesn't listen to parental advice from people who don't have children with the same disorder as her child has. I believe it was Asperger's. It's because unless you know what it's like to be in the situation, you don't know what accommodations and adjustments you need to make. You don't know what you're willing to change, what you're willing to accept. It's because every relationship requires us to make adjustments to ourselves. We accept things that we never thought we would accept. We bend on things that we never thought we would bend on. And as time goes by, relationships last not because we make them into something amazing, but rather because we found more empathy or compassion for ourselves and our partner. They might do things which we formerly thought were unforgivable, but now we understand. We do some things which might be unforgivable too. So long-term and long-lasting relationships are less about an idealized perfect love and more about finding compassion for yourself and the person you're in a relationship with. And if you can't find compassion for them, at least finding a really good reason to stay. That's the bottom line. Finding a good reason why you want a relationship to continue. Once you've done that, and you accept that you're staying in the relationship, that you have a choice, it actually starts to make the relationship better, because it takes stress off of both you and your partner to be perfect. Now that might sound kind of cynical to people, and it does bring us back around to the idea of I deserve to be happy. And yes, everyone does deserve to be happy. And there are definitely relationships where the drawbacks are much stronger than the benefits from the relationship. But in most, it's usually around 50-50. 50-50 looks like sometimes you're not quite thrilled with the relationship and you're ready to toss it all. And other times you think this isn't so bad, or this is kind of nice, and you decide to stay. That's true for everybody. The benefits of long-term relationships can be quite nice. Just ask some women who've been in relationships and now are single. There are different benefits and different challenges, and usually it's still about 50-50. Now you have a single income, less companionship, not having someone around to reach things for you in the top cupboard or do some of the things that you don't like to do. And yes, we can adapt. We can get a step stool. We don't need to have someone else. But sometimes it's just nice to have someone around to do those things that are a little bit more difficult or tedious for us to do. There's a constant weighing. Is it worth it to stay? Is it worth it not to stay? When we've realized that it really doesn't matter one way or another, then we have the confidence to both better our relationship and find ways to get our very human needs met, realizing that if you leave, there are benefits and drawbacks to that as well. So it's what direction you want to go. The perfect love that my friend is looking for exists when you realize that your relationship is perfect. That to me is the perfect love. And I'll take it one step further. With that acceptance and with that understanding, you find that love and that happiness because of how you perceive things. Maybe it's a rose-colored glasses sort of idea. But these rose-colored glasses are based not on deluding yourself, but rather choosing what you want to focus on and what you don't. When we choose what we want to focus on in a relationship, and we choose to focus on the benefits without deluding ourselves on the drawbacks, then the person who's in relationship with us will start to focus on the same things. Like in my marriage, there are a lot of things which justifiably I could have, should have, been very frustrated and irritated with. And I was, for about 10 years. Then a shift happened. I started to realize that it's okay. I get a lot of benefits from this relationship, and I was going to choose to stay. Realizing that made it not so hard to adjust to the reality of what the relationship really looked like. It became not so hard to pick up after someone, or make dinner, or take the garbage out, even if it wasn't noticed or appreciated. I realized I got so many more benefits than drawbacks in the relationship, and that I chose to stay, that I consequently became easier to get along with. Because I saw me staying as a choice, I took negative comments less personally, saw it mainly as maybe they're having a bad day, and I was able to stay calm when my partner would get frustrated or irritated, knowing that everybody gets frustrated and irritated. On the flip side, making peace with being a human being also made it easier for me to show my own frustration and irritation, and to do it in a way that didn't get into a big fight or wasn't glossing over the fact that I was irritated. There was no pretending. Rather, when my partner could see and understand that I was frustrated about something, they became much more compassionate, just like I am compassionate to their challenging moods. It's as if I modeled it. At first I had to point it out, and one of my favorite phrases became, "So it's okay for you to express your frustration and irritation, but it's not okay for me?" This usually pointed out the discrepancy and shifted the energy of the potential argument into a lighter moment. Because I've come to accept my own and my partner's humanity, my relationships have become easier and more enjoyable. Because I've become easier to get along with, my partner helps out more with things that used to irritate me. It's not as hard to keep the kitchen clean because I'm not the only one cleaning it anymore. In regards to addictive behaviors like smoking, overdrinking, or sex, when I set my boundaries about what I wanted around me and what I liked, but I balanced it with understanding and compassion for how difficult addictive behaviors are to break, then my partner didn't have to waste energy defending themselves against me. Rather, they had more energy to focus on changing their addictive behavior. There was no fight about it, and so their own life brought in the insight that said change might be necessary. I didn't have to say anything. Good relationships are based on perceiving the relationship with all of its challenges and all of its benefits as perfect. It's perfectly okay to complain about the things that you don't like and the challenges because that's normal. They found that women who have close friendships, people that they can vent about their relationships to, get their companionship needs met, have wild and crazy times with, they found that those women were most satisfied in their long-term relationships. Understanding that it's perfect to not like parts of your relationship is one of the keys to a long-term relationship. Life is a balance. The very same qualities that I like in one situation are the ones that I dislike in a different one. I enjoy that my husband is sensitive to his emotions, but I don't like that he takes some things too personally. Understanding that there are things I like and things I don't like, and it's perfectly okay to find a space to move that through me, makes me a lot easier to get along with. By not taking the things that we don't like so seriously, rather focusing on the things that we do like, the people around us start to respond and behave in ways that reflect the ideal relationship that I'd like to have. Now, sometimes they don't. It does take a bit of time, though. It can take 6 months, a year, a few years. But when it's evident, and you've got no more patience, that the drawbacks are more than the benefits, not ignoring the things that you don't like, rather making peace with them. When these shifts don't happen, maybe it is time to move on. But usually, when we focus on the things that we do like, all of these positive shifts start to happen. When we do what we need to do to make the relationship just the way that it is, a nice relationship, then the people in our life start to adjust to the new you. It doesn't mean you don't say anything. As I've gotten older, I've become more vocal. But I've made peace with the idea that I get irritated and frustrated too, and that it's perfectly okay to express that in a way that isn't overly dramatic, in a way my partner can accept. Although no one likes to be near someone who is irritated, usually people will adjust, they'll get used to the idea, and become softer and more compassionate when we're out of sorts. When you realize it's okay to feel frustrated, and to express your frustration in a way that doesn't destroy your relationships, then your relationships become better. If after a few months or a few years you don't see any shifts in the direction you'd like to see them, then maybe the drawbacks are more than the benefits. When we become less attached to the right or the wrong way of doing relationship, when we stop getting so emotional about our emotions, then we have the freedom to create the relationships that work best for both people involved. Our partners need to know when we're frustrated and irritated, as well as when we're happy and content. When we hide who we are and how we're feeling, the people around us tend to misunderstand. They can sense when something is different, and if they don't know why, they'll make up their own story, which is usually inaccurate or only part of the picture. When people don't know who we are and how we feel, then they can't respond to us. When they know, then they get to choose how they want to respond, and they're not too busy reacting to a story their mind has made up. When we are as authentic as we can be, which doesn't mean telling someone everything we're thinking and feeling. Rather, when we focus on the positive and diminish the negative, the people in our life start to shift and adapt to their new perceived reality. The world will start to shift to and form around that. You don't need to pretend to be someone anymore. We accept who we are, where we are, and what we're doing. When that happens, watch our relationships and watch our world start to mold around us and become more ideal. So what's the key to long-term relationships? It's choosing to stick with it. That's it. When you decide you're going to stick with it and have decided it's worth sticking with it, then you find the courage to be more authentic and compassionate. And that gives the support to turn into a really nice relationship. Your partnership gets better because there's no fight. No one has to defend themselves. And they too are free to be themselves. Your partner is free to be the best aspect of themselves that they can be. So if you want a long-term relationship, the suggestion from many, many women who've been there is to decide that you're going to stick around.